I'll never forget. We go to AT&T to play Midwestern when we're in Tarleton, and you whip out that first pack of BC powder, and I didn't know people under the age of 50 were allowed to take that.
That's so funny. Also, I throw up all over the computer. I just was playing because I love the game. Like, and it's scary to me.
It's really easy for the game to become a job.
Below 6 in his hands, listless now.
Man, kids out there playing the game, staying out of trouble, competing. I love it.
Okay, so take me back, because we've talked about it briefly, but like I want the detailed version. You and Dilfer takes a job at Lipscomb. You go up there with him.
Yeah.
And from what you had told me was that you knew it was going to be like a complete rebuild, like rebrand. Had to make the program hit the restart button. But what did that look like? What did that entail?
Well, I mean, it entailed walking in to a locker room that didn't have washers and dryers, first off. And so I remember telling Dilfer, I was like, well, hey, we got to buy a washer and a dryer because we got to do our laundry. He goes, what do you mean? I go, well, Coach, we do their laundry. He goes, got it. Okay. So we got to buy a washer and dryer, which is a funny story. If you fast forward, I come back here this past year. Come to find out, we have yet to pay for the washer and dryer. Oh, yeah. Because I'm sitting there and I'm back there looking at it and something was wrong with it. First time we had an issue with it, and it's the industrial ones. And so we have to call the company. And the company's like, bro, you haven't even paid for this yet. Here's your outstanding bill for whatever, 10 grand or something like that. So that was like our head coach is like, hey, welcome back to Lipscomb. But anyway, that's what it entailed first off. And I remember we're back at the washer and dryer, and I find some of their old game pants. And they're like, let's see if I can, here we go. This will be good. They're like, I don't know if you can see the yellow, but it's like a, not a very good look. It's like a gold yellow.
It's got a little urine tinge.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it. And so, but the whole pants were that color with no brand, not even Russell or Starter. It was just
pants.
Just equate. I don't know. It's just pants. And so
Larry Hill's favorite brand.
Like, this is what we're dealing with. And mind you, Dilfer, obviously, like coming off ESPN and being like an NFL guy, he's all Nike till the day he dies. And so we went from, I think the jerseys may have been like Russell or something like that. I don't know. To like, he called his rep, the lady at Nike, he's like, we're going straight Nike, everything. And so put a hefty check into that. So like completely had to rebrand everything. And he's a big, like, if we're Nike, everything will say Nike. We're not going to have some Nike, some Under Armour, some Russell, some Starter. So basically had to throw everything away and rebrand this whole place. And naturally, for him being a Ravens guy, he wanted to change everything from gold. And his biggest thing was that he's talking about, he had his assistant do studies at ESPN about the impact of making your mark on a program. And one of the biggest things was if you could get away with changing the colors or making some colors more dominant than what the other ones were. So we were more gold and purple. He's like, nah, we're going to go black and purple, the Ravens. So, which he never said that, but like.
But you knew.
We knew. So that was a big part of it.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, that's something that I probably need to put a little bit more thought into, because not only is your boy rocking purple these days, but and I would say it like a full change of that kind, but something that's like moving forward that could potentially be like, oh, McLean brought that.
Dude, my advice to anybody is like, I think so. Are y'all purple and white, right? Obviously. Mm-hmm. Or gray, just
it's purple and white, third accent gray.
So I'm a big believer in like two-tone. I think like when you look at Penn State, there's beauty in that. There's just two colors. And I think if you can ever avoid the outline of the third, dude, it is so much cooler. So even if it's like one uniform, like if you have 3 uniforms, make one of them where it's just straight up two-tone. Like purple and white that'd be nasty.
For sure.
What do I know?
What do I know?
I'm just a peasant.
Well, I wouldn't say that. The part that he's leaving out in the rest of that story is that the field house he's sitting in right now, apparently it was like an auto mechanic shop when they got there, because it was just bare bones and not functional. And your boy TK had to redesign and re-implement every aspect of it.
This was actually a ton of boxes in here that you couldn't even walk in the room. And then we transitioned it into the governor's lounge. So the governor, actually a smart move. We actually said that it was going to be the governor's lounge, so we get the state to pay for it. Governor came in one time to shower, and we had couches in here, and then transitioned it from the governor's lounge to coaches' offices, because they didn't have coaches' offices down here. Literally, there weren't offices. Wouldn't even a table down here, no nothing. So we had to have people come in here. Luckily, we have, being a private school, you have dads that own furniture shops and dads that are, into carpentry. And so we had to call all them, and they came and built desks for us so we could actually have a place to work. So I remember walking in the office, and I was like, "This is our office?" He's like, "I guess so." And it was just an empty room. So
where do I sit?
Yeah, I was like, obviously I'm not a teacher, so like, where do I operate from? So we went and stole a table actually from the high school, threw it in the back of his Tahoe, and then brought it down. We actually also stole steal is a bad word. Borrowed. Yeah, borrowed a whiteboard. That's what we operate off of for the first few months. So yeah, but it's a better setup now. It's good.
There you go.
Yeah,
life's a little bit better.
Yeah.
So that kind of leads to my next question. So you've been a couple different places. We were talking about it before. How many of those you've never gone somewhere? I guess Lipscomb be the only place you've gone like because a head coach left, right? Everything else was just you being brought on to like boost the offensive staff, right?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
But in that transition, there's, for you to go somewhere, somebody's got to leave, right?
Yeah.
What's the craziest thing that you've come across a coach that's leaving doing, like as they exit a program?
I mean, I think the most recent one was here. Like, as an offensive coordinator, I do think that you do need to be protective of your vernacular and your system. At the same time, like, people can have a piece of paper or a document of your verbiage, and it doesn't mean they're going to know it. And so I remember when we first got back here, I went to, and I actually operated in huddle for a few months, but somewhere along the line, maybe it's like a month, somewhere along the line, one of the former coaches who I guess was still in huddle that we didn't take off, so our mistake, went in and manually deleted all the information, which, like, I could care less what you call your inside zone. Like, just because I can see that you call your inside zone, one dice, 2 dice, doesn't mean that I can teach it. So, like, it doesn't, like, there's a difference in, like, me seeing the diagrams, and even then it's still like, okay, still got to coach it, and me just seeing the vernacular. And the problem with me was like, okay, like, I'm good. Like, did it piss me off? Yeah, it pissed me off. To me, was it selfish? Obviously, extremely selfish. But more importantly, like, okay, what if we had some kids that wanted to go in and, like, filter all the doubles so they could see all 2x2, which they're probably not. But, like,
you never know.
Never
Might
know.
have one.
And so they can't anymore because you go into the formation and it's just empty. And it's like, seriously, like, you're gonna be that selfish where you're gonna do that? Like, hey, I can promise you, whatever you had on there, you didn't invent it. Like, it ain't world changing. And so, like, to me, that's probably the craziest, stupidest thing I've come across. And so, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody knows I've only been a couple places, so I didn't really have didn't have to worry about that. Like when I was at Salina and then at Rivercrest, there was a little bit of crossover with the guy before me, and he was great. Like, we had a couple really good conversations, and I mean, I told him, if when you leave, if there's something you need, just let me know, and I'll email it over to you or whatever. Um, things have been a little funny here. And my thing is like, it's like you said, like, listen, I'm not that smart. I pretty much try and just copy guys that I think are really good. Like when I watch a game, I'm trying to watch it in a way of like, how would Coach Browse or, Coach Birdwell or TK or Coach Willard, how would they watch this? What would they try and do? Because those are guys that I respect, that I know they know what they're doing, and if I can copy or implement or mimic a portion of their style, then I got a chance to be pretty successful. So like, there ain't nothing that I got that's like new to the game. So, but I mean, there was a snafu for me to get added to Huddle, and it was like, it's this whole long drawn out process, and it takes an extra day and this, that, and the other. And then now, like, I'm going in and like, okay, well, where's this game? And where's this game? And, you boys got some experience with Huddle and people accidentally deleting stuff, or, I think I don't need a playlist that I made in 2021 anymore. And I go back and it's like, I probably need that. So I do have that number to Huddle, and I've been kind of coached through how to recover some of those stuff. And I was able to get a lot of it back. But my thing is like, are you doing that for you, or are you doing that for the kids? Like, isn't that what we do this for?
Right.
Like, I definitely didn't get into coaching high school football to become the richest man in the world. I did it because I love
games
it.
Missing?
Well, not anymore.
That's good. That's good.
Wait, there ain't no hustling backwards here. That's the biggest thing. Is, I'm going to exhaust all options before I just throw in the towel. And, like I said, I've heard of this rabbit hole before, and so I kind of had an idea that if I ever came across it, how to deal with it. But I mean, whatever the personal reasoning is, like, are you doing that for personal reasons, or are you doing that because you think that that's what's best for the program? Right? Every conversation I've ever had is like, leave it better than you found it. Right? When I got this Lina, I spent a lot of time trying to figure out how can I leave this place better than I found it, because it's pretty good, right? What's the 1% that I can add before I walk out the door, whenever that is? When I got to Rivercrest, leave this place better than you found it. Whenever that's going to be, how can you make sure that it's set up to be successful after you, right? And I don't know, man. Like, I know in games, I know on the sideline, I can be a pretty prideful, loud person. But to me, that comes out because, like, I want the kids to be successful. I want them to experience that. It's not because I think it's going to do anything else for me. And so I just can't fathom jumping through those hoops to create roadblocks for something that you're not a part of anymore. I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking it. Maybe I'm making a bigger deal of it than I need to, but I just feel like I think there's an intellectual property aspect that, if you really wanted to get down to it, that could be pulled into play as the program, as the school district, and all of those things. So it was just it was very shocking to me. I had not been a part of anything like that, and I didn't really know how to handle it, except fight tooth and nail not to completely flip my lid, solve the problem, which we did, because that's what we do. Yeah. And, kind of reset, move forward. So,
yeah, to
I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I don't know. Obviously it's stupid, because again, like, to me, it's like, bro, your stuff ain't that great. Ain't none of our stuff that great. And at the end of the day, like, the only thing I would understand deleting from Huddle is if you made a tape of signals of you signaling to show the kids what the signals are. I get that, because that is your stuff. Those are your signals. That type of stuff can affect. And what good is the video of you signaling going to do for the next head coach? Literally nothing. Like, there's nothing that he can benefit from that. But if you ask yourself, like, what can he benefit from having my information? I should say our information, because it's obviously he's not the only coach that's on staff. And it's a lot. It's him being able to watch games and filter, okay, let's have 2x2. It's him the next year when they're playing that same opponent being able to pull in that data. And again, that he's not going to know, we aren't going to know how you coach, what you're teaching in that specific concept. So it doesn't matter. It's just, to me, that's just spite and ignorance and pettiness.
Well, and to me, the other thing is like, and you never want to think this way. This isn't the conclusion I ever want to jump to, but like, your boy's been double crossed a couple times with, huddle passwords and things of that nature, and sneak, this guy ends up looking at things that they may not should have. And, they say something to this guy, and all of a sudden you go on a 4-year run of one possession games and you can't figure out why they seem to know every move that you're about to make before you make it. And then the reason comes to light and it's like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. And you end up winning by 2-3 possessions the next time you play it. It's, I've been a part of that. So like, I understand a certain level of paranoia, but ain't none of that stuff happening in January. You ain't getting that stuff. Yeah. You ain't getting that stuff from me on Huddle in January.
Correct.
And it took me so long to get comfortable and confident in what I do now from a scheme standpoint. I ain't got time to try and learn a new one.
Yeah.
Right? Like, let me just be me. If your stuff's there, hey, cool, let me know. I'll get you what you need. But like, don't hurt the kids. Kids trying to make a highlight tape. Now you can't access a game. That's crazy. That's crazy work, as the youngins say. That
is. So, well, the universe always finds a way to get back to people that do wrong. So
100%. And the one thing that I've said since, especially in the last like 3-4 years is 90% of the time, we're not going to win a game because of X's and O's. We're going to win it because the kids believe it.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. You and I have said time and time again, there's 1,000 ways to skin a cat, right? All we got to do is get everybody on the field to believe this is the best way to do it. As long as they do, we're probably going to be successful. So
that's right.
There ain't no magic formula. Kind of on that note, I was listening to Edelman's Games with Names podcast, and they were talking. I want to say it was Ty Law. They were like, what made that era, the early 2000s, like beginning of the dynasty, what made it so different? And so he said it was just the more you can do. Find something you can do. It wasn't because they had the greatest offense coordinator and the greatest defense coordinator. It's because when it was offensive emphasis and the starting defense wasn't on the field, they were running wind sprints or doing push-ups. And it started with Ty Law and the rest of the secondary, and then Mike Vrabel, and then Brewski. And then when the defense was on the field, Tom Brady's over there doing it. Right? Those are the kind of things that are impactful and carry over. It's not what you call 3x1 or trips and up or your 2-point plays. Like, let's focus on that stuff. How do we get kids to believe that stuff? How do we get kids to lead from the front with that stuff? Not look at how fancy my playbook is. My playbook is not fancy. If it was, I'd probably forget half of it.
Yeah.
So.
Ooh, hey, speaking of that real quick. So I'm just going to bash on Huddle real quick. So we, for some reason, we decided that here at Lipscomb Academy, we didn't want to have Just Play anymore. Weird. Anyway, and to me, that's one of the best playbook apps you can have.
I was about to call a timeout and be like, just so everybody knows, TK, number one Just Play user, number one Just Play supporter.
Absolutely. I've been sharing the gospel of Just Play since 2019, right? So when they first came here in 19, they were heavy basketball, not heavy football. Obviously, Dilfer's like, well, hey, I'm Trent Dilfer. How can I help? And so he's like, all right, I'll become an ambassador. Give us a sweet deal. Let's roll. To make a long story short, I've had a guy there who knows how much I have been. Honestly, I probably should have gotten some commission over the last 4 or 5 years for how much I've helped them. But because of that, he's like, hey, wherever you go, I got you. Like, I'll hook you up with a good, sweet deal. I'm like, okay, cool. I go to log in the other day. Can't log in. It says you don't have these valid credentials. Text my guy. I don't get a text back. I do get a text from another random number who's like, "Hey, your guy texted me, said you couldn't log in." So the way that Just Play works is you have your program account, and then if you pay for your own locker, which I advise everybody to do, then you have that forever, right? Well, all of my information was in the Lipscomb football account, not in my locker. And I remember thinking in the middle of the season, like, I should probably like transfer all my stuff from the account to my locker just in case. Didn't do it. The guy texted me, he's like, by the way, can't really find a contract for you for Lipscomb Academy. So we had to like deactivate your account. It's like, got it. So now none of the team can have our account. And I'm trying to explain to him, like, hey, I'm a good guy. Like, I spread the word to you guys. And he's like, yeah, bro, that ain't going to work anymore. And so I'm begging him, like, please just like let me have my information back. And so
give me 24 hours, please.
Yeah, which is not that expensive. It's $3,000. We here totally should be able to do that, but we just refuse to do it. Whatever, doesn't matter. So we're now transitioning.
It's not that expensive. It's only $3,000.
Yeah, but I mean that's a check today if we actually asked a parent, but
post dated.
Whatever. So we go to the huddle playbook, which I've never used. So I'm going to the huddle playbook, and I'm drawing basically like Y cross escort, and there's a speed dig on the backside, and I think it's very important when you're drawing lines. Like, if it's a speed dig, that thing better round off. It better not be a square cut. Well, apparently nobody just thought on huddle that like maybe we should have a tool where it will draw a nice rounded line. Nope. So all you can do on huddle is you can just, and maybe somebody can coach you up here. I don't know, but I called them and asked them. You can choose to click, and it'll draw a straight line. But the only way that you can actually draw a curved line is if you then hand draw it on huddle.
Yeah, well, I mean, like you got to adapt.
Which looks like, but that looks like my daughter's handwriting then. So it's like a perfectly straight line, and then looks like Adam Sandler, like
Naruto.
It's like I'm like, so I call huddle. And I go, hey, I know I'm brand new to huddle, so like surely I'm wrong here, but like I want to be able to go a straight line into a nice curve that you guys auto generate for me that I can hit shift and it makes the straight line go to a curved line like Just Play. Help me do that. She's like, yeah, you can't. I go, what do you mean you can't? I was like, so you're telling me every line on my playbook is either going to look like a 3-year-old did it or every line is going to be a 90-degree angle? She's like, yeah, basically. I was like, and nobody's complained about this?
Chill. Okay, let's dial it back. Let's reel it in. Your emotions are taking over. So first thing, call huddle and then say, why don't you just do it like Just Play? She probably stopped listening. But what you do, future reference, is you draw a 45 and then you break it 90. So that's your roll. God. So now they know if they see the angle, that means it's speed. And if they see the 90 angle, then it's breakdown and get across.
You're saying fine. Here, there, and then there?
Yeah. I mean,
okay, I'm going to have a child take it literally, and he's going to go straight, cut it a perfect 45, and then cut it a straight line. No, I want him rolling off his inside foot and going around.
Well, if he double breaks it like that, you're either coaching it or you're allowing it. I don't know what listen. I don't know what to tell you. These are the things that you told me.
Well, the point being is it's a monopoly from a program that now apparently is also selling tickets on their website.
Oh yeah.
And so it's like, they're becoming Apple, and they're going to force everybody to go to this one thing and not try to be elite. So I don't know. I'll be Just Play till the day I die. And I told those guys, I was like, hey man, like I will find a way. I will find a way to get back to you guys. So until then, we'll have an average, mediocre playbook.
If there's one thing you cannot question about TK, it's that he's loyal to a fault, baby. Just Play in 6 months, Just Play could turn out to be, it could go downhill. They could sell, and they don't even care about the playbook aspect. They just want the back end like coding, and he won't care. He's Just Play till the day he dies.
That's right.
All right. Well, let's try and brighten your moods. I heard today. I actually heard yesterday. I'm not gonna lie. I heard yesterday. Friday Night Lights Reboot's coming.
Yeah.
Let's talk
Yeah.
about it. What are your thoughts? What does that look like? What's it going to take? Would you enjoy it?
I don't know. I mean, to me, when you have these reboots, it's like it's the fear of having Home Alone 3, where it's like one was great, and very rarely two is better. Me personally, I think Home Alone 2 New York was unbelievable. I think it was
Well,
actually better.
D2 Mighty Ducks was better than the original as well.
Touche. And so Home Alone 3 was a catastrophe. And it genuinely makes me upset to even see the picture of Home Alone 3, because it's just like, you're not Macaulay Culkin. Like, who are you? Like, and so you're not Marv. And that makes me mad. And so I see that and I'm like, well, obviously we're not going to have Riggins because he's probably 45 years old. And that's not going to work out. And I saw the video too, where he obviously was saying like,
No.
he ain't doing it. He's like, I might be an appearance of like a coach, but he's like, no, to me to go back and be Riggins would be, no.
He's like, Riggs is dead.
That's right. So like, I don't know. I find it hard to believe that you can, when you have something that great with those people, the only thing that can ever match that again are those people. And then normally when it doesn't work, it's because it's been so outdated. Those people just can't play that role anymore because they're old. Just look at her. She's old.
What happened to Miss Taylor? So I did a little snooping, did a little research. I don't know if I'd call it research. TikTok came back after its 18-hour hiatus, and I jumped on there and started scrolling. I came across some stuff. But so it's a completely different town in Texas that has been just devastated by a hurricane. And so it's the community and this ragtag group like rallying together to piece together their season and, picking up the pieces from this hurricane and in their pursuit for a state championship and a dream season, et cetera, et cetera. Which I think, like, to me, I envision that's like the CSI approach, right? Like you had CSI, then you had CSI Miami, and you had like CSI, I don't know, Hawaii or whatever all they are.
Yeah.
So it's Friday Night Lights, but it's not. They're not just like rebooting the cast. It's the same overarching theme, which I think is great because what I think that Friday Night Lights did is it rejuvenated Texas high school football fandom, because I think that the fandom was very local, right? Like everybody supported their town, but once your town's out of it, you're just like, well, whatever, right? But Friday Night Lights kind of put it on that stage to where it became more of like a national brand. So now, like, oh, your team loses in the second round, but I'm still gonna go buy tickets to watch so and so play in the fourth round, right? And I think that I was a benefactor of that, right? Like my high school lost in the first round, but then we ended up attending the famous Southlake Trinity third round game at Cowboy Stadium, where Trinity goes for it, runs like a fake punt inside a minute. They don't get it. Southlake, Riley Dodge marches them down the field, wins the game. They said there was only like 51,000 people there. I think there was like probably 65, if not 70. It was crazy. It was awesome. But I think that's what it did. So if you take that approach where it's like completely new town, completely new team, completely new coaching staff, like all those pieces, and then you get your like random cameos of like, Coach Taylor's like, he works for UIL now and like pops in, or whatever, right? What does that look like?
Cool.
But you bring in those pieces and it's like, hey, I remember when you did that. Okay, you're done for that episode. And you don't try and just like recapture the exact same magic. I think it's got a chance. And I think it's coming at a good time because I think that in-person attendance is, the UIL and Dave Campbell's put out the thing that, state attendance took a huge hit.
Really?
Yeah. So
Why?
Matt Stepp had a lot of different reasons, the college football playoffs being one of them. So that same weekend so you saw the biggest dips you saw were in 5A and 6A in attendance. The 1 through 4A pretty much held par within a couple hundred. And And I actually think that the Salina game, I think theirs surpassed last year's attendance a little bit. I could be wrong, but it was, I mean, all of 1 through 4A, like 6-man through 4A they were still within that same window, but 5 and 6A, like the South Oak Cliff game had less than the Salina game from an attendance standpoint.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was crazy. But Matt Stepp, one of the big things was that was the same weekend that SMU is playing a college football playoff game and Texas is playing a college football playoff game, right? So it's like if I drive to AT&T and I go to these games, then like I can't watch, these teams. So I just watch them both from my house, right? So you lose out on casual fans there. The other part being, economic. The ticket to get in is not crazy expensive, but everything else is. You still got to pay to park at AT&T. You still got to do this. You still got to do that. Like hot dog's still $14. Like all those crazy things. But I think that a show like this could recenter the focus on like the game and the power of the game and the power of the fans and et cetera, et cetera. And so that part I think is promising and it could be good for the sport as a whole. And like I said, as long as they don't go out there and try and like put Coach Taylor back in a Dillon Panthers, quarter zip and some golf shorts, then I think it has a chance if it sticks to kind of what I would consider that CSI model of like, yes, it's Friday Night Lights, but new setting, new storyline, new characters, all that. So
whoever they decide to be the head man is a very big deal.
Huge deal.
Because obviously he goes from Billy Bob in the movie to what's his name?
His name's Coach Taylor in the show, and that's all that matters.
Coach Taylor. God, he's legit because he's a guy in Bloodline too. He crushes it.
100%.
But anyway, so whoever the next person is, it's like that's to me that's a make or break.
And which side note, went and saw the Panhandlers this weekend. Josh Abbott's part of that, and he sang Idaloo, and he was very specific. He was like, a lot of people think this song is about the Coach Taylor from Friday Night Lights. And it's not. This is about the real Coach Taylor from Idaloo that actually did win state and then retire after being there for like over 30 years. So,
cool. Really
Panhandlers, cool. Great show. Check them out.
Yeah. Good.
But anyway, so I'm hopeful that Peacock does it right. I don't know what, NBC, whatever. Hope they do it right because I think it could be good for the game and kind of reinvigorate that national brand aspect. Because I do think that it's great that high school ball is getting so much exposure on a national level, right? But I would like to see it become more. It's almost too available, right? Like you can stream it, you can watch it on a national channel, you can do these things, and so people aren't as invested into the physical attendance. And I think that I think that that's one of the special parts of the game. Speaking of the game and national stage and things of that nature. Had a couple high school, showcase games, All-American games, the Under Armour game and the Navy All-American game. And Salina kid was playing in the Navy All-American game. Quarterback Bo Bentley, he's a freak. I don't want to say I knew it before anybody. I didn't know it before anybody else, but I was pretty confident he was going to be pretty good when he was in junior high. But my point being is that he's in 2026. He's a junior, and he played in the Navy All-American game. And apparently, this is the first year that they're doing this kind of thing, but it's become more of a pressing topic in a conversation because so many people are starting to reclassify or graduate early, so they can early enroll. And so they're having a select number of usually. The path was you do the combine off season of your junior year, you get invited, and then you play January of your senior year. But so many kids are graduating early and early enrolling into college. Some of the more prominent talent is missing out on the game, so they've started inviting juniors, which I think is great. If the kid can play, the kid can play, and you want them to be able to take part in those without it, playing into their decision to early enroll or things of that nature. But I was surprised at those two games, I mean, Under Armour started their game, probably like 10 years ago? I don't know, maybe more. Those games, I think, were played at the exact same time, which it is what it is. One's on ESPN, one's on NBC, but like, I don't know. It's just my 2 cents, find a different time slot, especially one's inside, one's outside. Like I just feel like you could both have the same viewership or you could split viewership. I don't know, but
right.
Your thoughts?
Yeah. The world's a greedy place.
It's true.
As far as the time slots go, but yeah, no, that's interesting. I didn't think about the whole graduation or graduating early thing, how that could affect it, which is why they want to have more juniors.
I mean think about like Ryan Williams, the Alabama receiver.
Yeah, it's almost like they want to go straight juniors now. Think about it. You know what I mean? Just that's interesting to me. I didn't think.
But then you got to weigh the fact of like, because I think both situations, some of the guys that it seemed like a lot of the kids that they did that with were skill guys.
Mm-hmm.
Do you really want, if I'm the high school coach, do I really want my 4 or 5 star left tackle playing in an all-star game before his senior year?
Right.
Taking that risk. And I mean, obviously all those guys are 4 and 5 stars and they're going to take care of each other. It is, but I think now you add in that factor of like, how is this could this potentially impact my, my high school team and whatnot. But I thought that was a big change. I mean, you're talking about a game that's had Deshaun Jackson and McCaffrey and, a long line of like freakish talent that's played in this game, been the MVP of this game. Now you're including juniors. I mean, I understand it. I think it was necessary. I think it definitely adds a little bit more complexity to the decision for kids to play in it, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, that makes sense. I mean, obviously, because things are changing, across the scale from a high school transition into college perspective. I mean, more kids are reclassing and more kids are graduating early, which is unfortunate because, like, there's kids I know of that decided to graduate early, and it's like, bro, you don't even have an offer yet. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Like, just because your boys are getting them doesn't mean that you're about to. And so it just doesn't make much sense at all. But yeah.
Last thing, full circle back, kind of touching on what we talked about at the beginning. This time of year, it's always guys are either like reinvesting into the message, tweaking the message, or they're having to change the message, right? When you look at an off-season structure, and as a guy that's been a couple different places, worked for some head coaches, like in your vision, head coach TK, he's given the golden whistle, like, and you've got to build what that's going to look like. Mm-hmm. How would you paint the picture of like what your off-season, what your program personality is?
Yeah, it's interesting because I've been a lot of different places and I've seen a lot of different structures, in regards of off season. So I've been a part of one that was the old Converse Judson, off season, where everybody's in white shirts and question marks on them. And, they have I can't remember, 8 stations, and it's not about the weight, but everything's on command. It's going to be perfect. And everybody starts over and, it's a boot camp. It's a Converse Judson boot camp. I've been a part of that, and I thought that was pretty cool. That's not my style by any means. Do I like what it's supposed to instill? I do. And then I've been a part of other programs where it was just straight up lifting, and you're completely detached. Now, I will say the strength coach that was doing it was Luke Richardson, who is basically one of the founders of XOs, and was Athletes Performance before that, and trained the back-to-back number 1 draft pick in the NFL. So like, we were like, by all means, you got it. And we had nothing to do with any of the off season. We would show up after the lift and start our installs. Principally, what I would like to do if I'm the head coach and I don't have a Luke Richardson, I don't think that I would do a boot camp. That's just not who I am. But I do think that there has to be a very, very good balance of, the discipline obviously is the biggest thing that you have to instill every offseason. Like, to me, that's a non-negotiable. And how you decide to install discipline through adversity is very important. I think forcing your players to do hard things and get uncomfortable should be the primary role of an offseason. I think that is how you find out who and what your team is made of. And so I think you've got to do that, and you've got to find ways to make things uncomfortable. I also think that too many people take that overboard, and there is zero fun in off season, and you got to remember that they're kids. And so I think there has to be a really good balance of doing hard things, making them extremely uncomfortable on a day-to-day basis, but not always walking on eggshells, and they're still having this fun still because they're kids and they need to have fun. And, having a few months away from football makes it tough for some kids. And so how are you making that balance? So to me, never having done it, that's where I would start is, okay, here's my objectives. Now, here's the outline, the blueprint. How do we color this in as a staff? And how do me as a head coach ultimately want to make this happen?
Yeah. And the only thing that I would piggyback on that is like, you have to make sure the personality of the head coach is echoed through the personality of the program, of the off-season program, the in-season program, et cetera, et cetera. Larry Hill got his first state championship this year. Guess what?
Yeah.
That off-season program, that's Larry Hill through and through, baby. We are sponsored by Plain White Sox.
That's right.
And that's known. And he's a great motivator, and he builds great relationships with kids. So they're bought into his style, his personality of that program. They have great discipline. They have these things. They're consistent winners, right? But the kids believe it. And that's the biggest thing. It doesn't matter how you do it. To a certain extent, there are definitely some wrong ways to do it, but it doesn't matter how you do it. What matters is, do the kids relate to it? Do they believe you? And is it you? Is it authentically you? And as long as you can check those boxes, you got a great chance to be successful. And I think that that's the number one thing. Any young coaches listening that are trying to build and figure out what they want it to look like, you better make sure priority one is that offseason, that program as a whole is a reflection of your personality, and your personality is authentic to the kids and they believe it. Once you do that, the details are almost semantics, right? You figure that stuff out. But whatever it's going to look like to those kids that are going to be in it every day, they better believe that that's you through and through.
Yeah. Well, I would say you're in an interesting position right now, right? Because you're going into a new school, into the off season. Obviously, with new schools come new scheduling and new kind of windows that you may or may not be able to train the kids. So how different do you see this off season being from your previous off seasons at Rivercrest?
Yeah, I mean, it took some time to really look into the logistics and the scheduling and how do I here's the first thing I did was here's the things we got to get done, right? Whatever it looks like, point blank period, we got to do 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's the best schedule. Here's the bell schedule. Here's the athletic schedule. How do I make those be as efficient as possible in what I already have for the next few months until I get an opportunity to get my hands in there and really cater this thing to exactly how I want it. But because of that, there's some sacrifices that are having to be made. There's some, like you said, some adverse situations that are going to make people uncomfortable. But what I know is, and I don't mean because I didn't come up with it. What I do know is that these 3 foundational pieces in some style are successful. I've seen it. I've seen other people do it. I've seen multiple other people do it. I've been able to implement it and have success. Took me a little longer than I expected, not going to lie, but hey, keep chopping wood, keep carrying water. And if we can get past that initial, this is new resistance and just go all in, we're going to be just fine. Mm-hmm. And I truly believe that.
I love it.
We're going to turn the volume up. We're going to load the bar, and we're going to have a lot of fun doing it. I've never been a coach that's hesitated to be hard on a kid. because I know I'm the first one in line to tell them great job.
Sure.
And if coaches are pushing each other over to go celebrate that kid, then you can coach them hard. If they know that you're going to be standing there to hug them and say great job, then they're going to look you in the eye when you turn the volume up and correct them aggressively. Right? So that's my thing is I know what the important pieces are because they've been relayed and instilled in me through other great coaches. I know what those pieces are. Had to spend a little time to make sure we can be the most efficient version of ourselves to get those. And until we can tweak the schedule a little bit to what I think will be even more efficient, then we're just going to roll. Like I said, we're going to lock the door. We're going to turn the music up and we're going to get big, scary, and strong. So
go Tigers.